On November 15, 1926, the National Broadcasting Company hit the airwaves for the first time. At this point, broadcast networks were still relatively new, and while impressive, the process was not without its issues. NBC's programming was broadcast from New York City, transmitted via telephone wire to 19 affiliate stations, and then sent via radio into the homes of listeners. A major difficulty was communication between the network headquarters and the affiliate stations. Some networks utilized two lines between parties, a telephone line that transmitted the programming, and a telegraph line that transmitted memos between employees. NBC did not have the latter, so when it came time for the affiliate stations to manually switch between programs, they were often unsure when the programming block was going to end, resulting in a clumsy operation that affected the listening experience. Almost immediately after its debut, NBC was looking for a way to solve this issue. Rather than spend time and money running telegraph lines to all of its affiliates, NBC needed to send the message that programming was going to conclude through the programming itself. This message needed to be clear enough that the affiliate stations would know to make the switch, but not disruptive to those listening to the programming. An NBC announcer, Phillips Carlin, had previously been the announcer of the B.F. Goodrich Silvertown Orchestra program, which was introduced by a series of chimes. Carlin suggested that a short series of notes be played at the end of programming, signaling to the affiliate stations to make switches while offering a pleasant melody to listeners. The original NBC melody consisted of 7 notes, which would be played by the announcer at the end of the program. This sequence proved too complicated for many announcers, and after a few years of experimenting, the melody would be simplified to just 3 notes: G, E, C. While not the first musical network identifier put in place, the NBC chimes was the first to be recognized nationwide and was the first iconic sound signature in the United States. As more radio and eventually television networks entered the media landscape throughout the 20th century, many would try to create sound signatures of their own. Most often, the branding would only last a few years before being refreshed, and the sound signatures with the most longevity would often not be themes representing the network as a whole, but rather a specific programming block, such as a theme for news or sports. Still, there were a few network themes that became permanent. The NBC chimes are still used today, 90 years after being introduced. In 1984, Nickelodeon debuted a theme sung by jazz musician Eugene Pitt and produced by roots musician Tom Pompisello.
Nick, 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 Nickelodeon!
This sound signature remains the network's theme and has been remixed countless times in the 40 years since being introduced. In 1993, HBO debuted the HBO Static Angel. The branding was created by a team led by HBO's head of production, Bruce Richmond, and the logo and short music cues still appear with HBO original programming nearly 3 decades later. The NBC chimes, the Nickelodeon mnemonic, and the HBO Static Angel are all iconic sound signatures, recognizable to generations of viewers. However, there is another network theme that fits this description, a theme that has been playing for 2 decades and has achieved an iconic status for generations as well. This is the Disney Channel theme. The theme comprises 4 notes. 4 notes that debuted in the early 2000s. 4 notes that dominated through the network's rise and peak in popularity. 4 notes that are still being used on the channel today. The Disney Channel theme was created by The Disney Channel theme was created by The Disney Channel theme was created by I have no idea. We should be good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Okay, great. Andrew Barth Feldman, Sis, Damian Haas, you are a star on stage and screen, and you have appeared in a Disney television production.
That's right.
You are a star of stage.
I am.
And screen.
Am.
You are a Disney Channel fan.
Some would say.
You have been on Disney Channel.
I have been on Disney Channel, yes.
I invited you here to ask you one question. So here we go. this is my question. Do you know the Disney Channel theme?
I feel like I do.
Do you know the Disney Channel theme song?
It makes me think like a Hillary Duff, like, "Hi, I'm Hillary Duff, and you're watching the Disney Channel," and then it'd be like,
it's hi, you're watching Disney Channel. That's the theme. But
That's not the theme. That is something, and the theme is in there.
it is there is one.
Yes, there is a theme.
Oh my god.
Don't.
That's right, you got it.
I know.
or is it like "Bwah, bwah, bwah, bwah," or something like that?
That is really close.
Okay, yeah.
It's actually...
Yeah, of course.
Isn't it weird that we don't know who wrote that theme?
No.
Okay.
We don't know who wrote the Nickelodeon theme.
Yes, we do.
I don't.
But you could know if you wanted.
Sure, and I'm sure we could know if we wanted to know who wrote
But
the
we
Disney Channel
can't.
theme.
Nobody
Okay,
knows.
go.
So what I'm going to try to do is a legitimate investigation
Okay,
where I try to figure out who wrote this theme.
great.
I'm catching you at such a crazy time in this journey that you're on. I can't wait to see where it goes.
I've always been fascinated with television programming, specifically programming breaks. The content before, after, and in between shows. Not the commercials, but the bumpers, network identifications, and interstitial programming. It is a fascinating liminal space, full of subtle reassurances. Here is where you are, here is what you've been watching, and here's what's next. Don't leave. Don't go anywhere. Don't worry. We'll be right back. At the peak of television's popularity, these breaks even acted as extensions of the main content, to the point that, absent of this material, context is lost. You can watch an episode of Full House or Family Matters on DVD, but without the TGIF branding and interstitials, there's a key component to the viewing experience that is missing. You can watch All That or Clarissa Explains It All on streaming, but it is a fundamentally different experience removed from the SNCC branding. There is no channel where this symbiosis is more apparent than Disney Channel. Unlike its rivals Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, Disney Channel does not have traditional commercial breaks with content produced by third-party advertisers. Instead, the channel uses this time in a variety of creative ways. This programming, which has been watched by millions of people for over 2 decades, is surrounded and accented by 4 simple notes. But how do you trace back their origins? Where do you even begin? Alright, let's establish our timeline. On April 18th, 1983, the Disney Channel debuted in the United States. As we've discussed a lot on Defunct TV, the Disney Channel was originally a premium cable service, following the successful model created by HBO a decade earlier. Subscribers of the Disney Channel were treated to reruns of classic Disney films, shows, and shorts, along with a selection of original programming and some cool bumpers. The Disney Channel logo featured Mickey's silhouette in front of a television with scan lines. This would often be accompanied by a Mickey-shaped satellite that became an icon of the channel in its early years. The channel did not have a dedicated theme when it debuted, so various instrumentals of Zippity Doo-Dah were used in the bumpers.
The Disney Channel.
In 1986, just 3 years after debuting, the Disney Channel was given its first big refresh. While the logo stayed the same, the tone of the channel was changed significantly, transitioning from its original dramatic, cinematic approach to one that was more lighthearted and Disney. This came with a new series of channel identifications that featured the disembodied hands of Mickey Mouse performing some sort of task or activity that resulted in the creation of the Disney Channel logo. These bumpers were brilliantly shot, visually stunning, and also a bit unsettling. There's something disturbing about only seeing Mickey's hands in puppet form and never hearing his voice. In one of these bumpers, Mickey goes into a photo booth, and you think surely this will be the one where we see his face, but no, the photos just come out smudged and blurred. Scary stuff. This bumper is also terrifying, but it's definitely on purpose this time. Mickey is having a nightmare in which his hand is being chased by a ghost, and then the Disney Channel logo itself. The hand then runs down a hallway made of the other bumpers, and all of those bumpers' hands begin to attack this bumper's hand. And one of the attacking bumpers is the bumper we're watching. The bumper ends with Mickey's alarm waking him up, which is a total cliche, but otherwise, the bumper is the best bumper. It bumps. Many of the musical cues in these channel IDs are similar, but the Disney Channel still lacked a distinct theme. However, an original song was created to promote the channel, and they did not hold back on the energy. This rather long musical number culminated in families and Disney characters singing "Disney's Our Channel," and among the choir was everyone's favorite Disney character.
Our channel, Disney's our channel.
This song often ended with one of the most violent logo reveals in the history of television. A few years later, in the early 90s, more channel IDs in the POV style were created, except rather than puppetry, these new ones used claymation, and instead of featuring Mickey's hands, this batch was from the perspective of Donald. In 1995, the Disney Channel began to phase out the scanline portion of its logo, opting to just use the text to represent the channel. This would not last long though, as 2 years later in 1997, the channel would have its most significant change yet, transitioning from a premium cable service to a basic cable channel. Disney would drop the in the channel's name, becoming simply Disney Channel. A new logo was created with a Mickey-shaped television that various characters would be composited into. This refresh also gave Disney Channel its most distinct musical theme yet. These branding changes were just part of a massive transition for Disney Channel. Up to this point, most of the Disney Channel's original programming was 27 minutes. But after the switch to basic cable, the channel would transition to television standard 22-minute programs. This meant that Disney Channel's 27-minute programming would be phased out and replaced with new content, and also that for every 30 minutes of airtime, the channel would need 8 minutes of programming breaks. Disney Channel assured its longtime viewers that they would not be filling this time with commercials, which was somewhat true. Disney Channel would take on very few sponsorships from outside companies, instead opting to advertise the countless products being sold throughout the Disney company. This turned Disney Channel into a synergy machine, seamlessly promoting its films, TV shows, products, and theme parks. However, it would be a disservice to call these tie-ins simply commercials, as they were formatted in such a way that they could be viewed as original programming. For instance, within a year of the transition to basic cable, Disney Channel began airing a program called Movie Surfers. Movie Surfers gave viewers an inside look at the newest Disney feature film, with child actors serving as entertainment reporters. Ideas such as these were brilliant and a sign of what was to come, but at this point in the late 90s, Disney Channel was still very much in a period of transition and experimentation, and not every idea stuck. Coming out of the switch to basic cable, Disney Channel created 3 distinct programming blocks. First, Playhouse Disney was created as a morning block with programming aimed at preschoolers. Second, Vault Disney was created to air classic films, television programs, and shorts. Vault Disney would air at night and throughout the early morning. Finally, Over a year after the rebrand, a third programming block was introduced to Disney Channel, an afternoon block aimed at tweens and teens named Zoog Disney. Zoog Disney had its own theme, its own characters, and even its own world. The Zoogs were a group of robots that lived inside of the bits and bytes between the television and computer screen. Their entire backstory is explained in their theme song, including the odd detail that they've been alive since the birth of fire. And since it was released in 1998, each character was introduced in a rap.
My name's Joe. I'm a Zoog. Got a place just for you.
The Zoog Disney programming block was an attempt to appeal to the tweens and teens of the late 90s that were becoming more and more interested in this thing called the interweb. It also served the dual purpose of promoting the tie-in website. The lineup for Zoog Disney was initially pretty sparse, with Disney needing to syndicate shows such as Growing Pains while it built its own tween programming. Though Disney really only needed to syndicate the 7th season of Growing Pains because this was the one that featured a young Leonardo DiCaprio, which allowed the channel to brand an entire week of programming as Leonardo Week.
Yeah.
In 2000, Disney Channel introduced a new variant of the 1997 logo, removing the characters in the middle and giving it a more modern, hip look. The Zoogs were also given a CG redesign with more human-looking characters, and Disney Channel even created Zoog video games and action figures. A new sound signature was also circulated around this time, but it was less of a musical mnemonic and more two melodic shouts. With the premieres of Even Stevens in 2000 and Lizzie McGuire in 2001, Disney Channel was on its way to establishing itself as a major competitor in the preteen demographic, which at the time was dominated by Nickelodeon. By 2002, Disney Channel was ready for another refresh. The 3 programming block model might have helped with the transition from premium cable, but it was no longer needed. The block with the most successful branding, Playhouse Disney, would remain. The Vault Disney block would be retired entirely, as Disney Channel was going all in on tween programming. The Zoog Disney branding would also be dropped, while most of its content would remain. Movie Surfers would continue to produce more episodes, and more interstitial programs in a similar vein were created. The previous movie block branding, Zoog Movie, would become Disney Channel Movie, with a brand new song that would become iconic for viewers of the channel. Perhaps most significantly, the rebranding would bring a new logo and a new channel theme. These additions first appeared at some point in late 2002. So I figure the first step in finding out who wrote the Disney Channel theme is finding when the theme first appeared. The Disney Channel Wikia said this came about sometime in September of 2002, so let's watch some ads from September of 2002.
Kids like you express themselves every day on Disney Channel.
It does help to talk about September 11th, because, you get it out of you and you get to be heard.
It was such a traumatic event that, how could you forget?
If you had heard me last year, that's all I would have been talking about.
It's definitely a healing process.
Disney Channel. Express yourself.
Oh, thank God. I really thought that was going to be the first appearance of the theme. This segment, this Express Yourself segment, I feel like I've seen something like this before, where the teen stars of the channel do these sit-downs, but usually it's about friends or the homework they pretend to do, but it's not about 9/11 usually. So after a bit more research, I found a lot more of these 9/11 PSAs, most of which were from right after the September 11th attacks in 2001, and these have been recirculated recently. About a year ago, there was a bunch of news stories looking back on these PSAs, but none of those look back on the ones that were a year later, which visually are a lot less patriotic, which makes the transition into talking about 9/11 far more jarring. Anyways.
When you give, you get back a lot more. Check out Disney Adventures Magazine for all the details.
You can make a difference. Kids can make a big difference.
So this is still the old logo, and I haven't heard the new theme yet, but I also haven't seen any Zoog Disney branding. So in the timeline here, it seems this is after Zoog Disney was retired, but before the new assets went into circulation. I'll watch a few more from this batch just to make sure.
Kids like you express themselves every day on Disney Channel.
One of the positive sides of September 11th.
All right, that's enough of that. I don't think the theme is in this batch, so let's move on. One comment does say, it's awesome you got a September 2002 Disney Channel airing from before the retool/logo change. So that makes me optimistic that the wiki is right and that September 2002 is when we get the new logo. Not sure if that's when the theme's going to show up, though. Also, huge thank you to archivists that upload programming breaks. These are specifically from Southpaw Frizzle. I view it as legitimately important historical work. These are time capsules that could have easily been lost. That's the old theme. So this is still before the retool. Gosh darn it. Let's see if there's any of those Express Yourself ads in here.
I think that kids should just be friends with their friends for who they are and not worry about where they came from or who their parents are.
I agree.
Someone differently just because of what someone else has done.
A lot of my friends, they're treated differently because of the whole September 11 situation.
Oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be a normal one. This was before Disney Channel's logo changed a few days later on October 7th, 2002 by CA Square. And then Evans Media Archive says, nope, they changed it on September 30th, 2002. There's no way somebody uploaded something from September 30th, 2002, is there? Oh my gosh. This is September 30th, 2002, and that's the new Playhouse Disney logo down there. We're so close.
Boy Meets World.
Wait.
After that, it's a twin thing.
Wait.
Sister.
On Disney Channel.
That was it. That was the 4-note mnemonic. We found it. So the new logo and 4-note theme debuted the week of September 30th, 2002, but we're still missing a key feature of the rebrand. I don't see any of the wand IDs. I don't see them drawing anything. The Disney Channel channel identification, or wand IDs as they are most often referred to, are a series of bumpers that feature a star of the channel stating their name and the program in which they appear, before uttering the classic line,
"And you're watching Disney Channel."
It's almost unnecessary to describe these bumpers, because they are by far the most iconic and recognizable aspect of Disney Channel that exists outside of the programming, and they are one of the most famous channel identifications in the history of television. For broadcast networks, channel IDs such as these are actually mandatory. Stations must air an identification during sign-on and sign-off, as well as every hour on the hour.
This is station KMBC, Channel 9, Kansas City.
This is because broadcast television uses public airwaves and is subject to the identification standards set by the Federal Communications Commission. Cable channels, on the other hand, are private, and instead of using airwaves, cable uses cables and satellites. So while cable channels such as Disney Channel don't legally have to air channel identifications, there are still many reasons why programmers might create these types of bumpers. For children's television, the FCC mandates that there's a clear separation between the programming and the commercials. This is due to the fact that children have child brains that can't always tell when Max and Ruby has ended and a commercial for Floam has begun. This is what initially led to some of the most famous bumpers in children's television, including the famous After These Messages bumpers from ABC. A channel identification after the commercials and before the programming can also qualify as a reasonable separation of the two. Another common use for channel IDs and bumpers in general is that they provide a buffer before and after the commercial block. This way, if the beginning or end of the commercial block is cut off due to a glitch or an error, it will only cut into the bumper and not the commercial. This prevents the channel from losing any revenue from its advertisers. Another, more obvious reason for a channel ID is the benefit to the viewer. While today it is almost entirely irrelevant, before the advent of modern television interfaces, viewers often had no way of knowing what network they were watching as they surfed through channels, so having someone say it out loud was actually pretty helpful. Perhaps the most important aspect of a channel ID, though, is branding, and this is the true genius of the Disney Channel wand IDs. In the course of just a few seconds, the channel was able to present one of their stars, one of their programs, the channel's name, and the channel's logo as one unified product. After comparing this to the chaos and randomness of Zoog Disney, it is no wonder why these idents were so successful in rebranding the channel, which is why it's so surprising that there are no wand IDs from late 2002, or I should say, almost no wand IDs. Who is this kid? This nobody was the first person to draw the Disney Channel logo. He's also really good. He is a pro. Look at those circles. It seems that this kid, whose bumper aired throughout late 2002, was the first person to appear in a wand identification, even if only technically. The first batch of Wand IDs with the channel stars would not air until June of 2003, 8 months after the rebrand. Prior to their debut, Disney Channel would rely on a different set of channel IDs that were far more elaborate in scope and used an impressive amount of visual effects for the time. Each bumper featured children using their imaginations to make an ordinary situation magical, before returning back to reality as the Disney Channel logo was revealed. Like the other bumpers from this refresh, these idents also ended with the 4-note theme. Watching these back to back, it's interesting to note how different the music cues are. They all have different tones, instrumentation, and progressions. Often, the only common element is the final 4 notes, which also vary slightly in key and rhythm. These Imagination IDs would continue to air on the channel, albeit less often, after the introduction of the Wand IDs. The initial batch of Wand IDs featured such stars as Hilary Duff for Lizzie McGuire, Raven-Symoné for That's So Raven, and America Ferrera for the Disney Channel original movie Gotta Kick It Up. This batch also included 2 animated Wand IDs, one for animated Lizzie and another for Kim Possible, Ron Stoppable, and Rufus. It is hard to properly explain just how popular these bumpers were. It seemed that every child that watched the channel desperately wanted to do one.
Me and my friend have glow sticks one day, and on the commercials you can see where they have those little glow sticks and they're going. And me and my friend like to play around. So like, I'm Selena, we're watching Disney Channel, we like to draw it all the time.
They never had you do a Wand ID despite you being on the channel.
No, and I could talk about my disappointment with that all day. That's all I wanted to do. That was all I wanted to do, because if I ever flipped the channel, odds are I would see like, what's up? I'm Juggy Brodelteen, and you're watching the Disney Channel, and do the little doots. The closest I ever got was they had my zombie character host like, it's Disney Halloween special week, and you know.
Oh, so you had a bumper?
I had a bumper, but it was with my character that was a zombie and was co-hosted by someone who did all the talking. So we never did the Mickey. It was just always like, you know, coming up next is whatever, and I'd be like, ah, no! And they'd be like, that's right, it is a new episode.
These bumpers have remained relevant with Disney Channel fans old and new. In 2019, the Disney Now app debuted a feature that allowed users to make their own Wand IDs. And at the 2022 D23 Disney Fan Convention, there was even a photo op where you could pretend to do one. The Wand IDs have even found a broader legacy outside of just those that watch the channel, reaching the true indicator of cultural notability: memes. The original batch constantly circulates online, with fans editing the footage to display the stars' drawings more realistically, showcasing just how bad these actors are at drawing what appears to be a fairly simple logo. Returning to the initial batch that was aired on the channel, the clever editing around these awful drawings is evident. I think the worst one has to be Spencer Breslin, who even in the edited version is still noticeably off. But to be fair, he probably had other things on his mind.
If you had heard me last year, that's all I would have been talking about.
I had seen these edited versions a few times, but I just thought of something while revisiting them. Where did this footage come from? These are obviously outtakes and not taken from the original idents. Sure enough, I was able to find a few of these outtakes, and there are a few things that stood out to me. First, this line from Hilary Duff.
Oh, it's mouse ears.
Yeah, it's mouse
ears.
Oh. There you go.
It seems that the stars were not sure what they were even supposed to be drawing, which makes you wonder what instructions they were given. Most likely, they were told they were drawing the new logo, and this was just her noticing that they were mouse ears for the first time. Hilary Duff is one of the first to ever see the new logo and the first to ever do a Wand ID, and she has no point of reference for what the final version will look like, and has no concept of just how iconic these bumpers will become. This is the burden of the trailblazer and the solitude of the trendsetter.
They made us do it like 900 times. I think I had like lost all personality at that point. Plus I was like pubescent teen. I was like, what are they making me do? This is invisible. This is not cool.
Another thing I noticed is that these outfits are the same ones used in the Express Yourself bumpers / 9/11 PSAs. This either means that the channel had a wardrobe for the stars whenever they were appearing as themselves, or that these were filmed on the same day or days. Both are likely. Finally, and most importantly, I noticed this. That is a slate. It is used for sound synchronization and shot organization. Clapperboards typically feature the scene, shot, and take, as well as the name of the director of photography and the director. It's difficult to make out, but the top name is labeled DIR, and the bottom is labeled CAM. This means that someone named G. Owen directed at least the production of the first batch of Wand IDs. Despite not airing until June of 2003, it is safe to assume that these Wand IDs were actually shot with the Express Yourself segments in 2002. The actors' clothes are the same, they look the same age, and they were all part of the same massive refresh. The Disney Channel Wikia claims that the Wand IDs were filmed along with the Express Yourself ads, specifically in August of 2002. If true, this makes perfect sense within the timeline. The channel probably set October as the month the refresh would kick in. As we discovered, many of these changes actually debuted on September 30th, but that was the Monday of the first week of October, so this still tracks. The only part of the August shoot that was time-sensitive was the 9/11 PSAs, which were designed to debut before the refresh during the one-year anniversary of the attacks that September. The post-production of these segments was likely expedited to meet the deadline, and the channel made sure that these all ended with the old logo. This is almost too perfect. These 9/11 PSAs were designed to only air in September of 2002, as all of the stars are referencing the one-year anniversary specifically. These would never air again, so only these would retain the old logo and would never need an updated version. The other Express Yourself ads were definitely shot at the same time, were designed to air at any time and in perpetuity, all end with the new logo, and for the record, have a very different tone than the 9/11 ones.
Ooh, I love food.
Express yourself.
Assuming G. Owen directed the Wand IDs from pre to post-production, then they must know who wrote the music, and therefore the theme. This is the most solid lead I have, but there is just one problem. I don't know their first name, and searching for G. Owen or any variation of did not return solid results. I assume that the voice in the outtakes is the director, and it sounds masculine, so I looked for Gregory, Gary, George, Gerald, Gabriel, Gavin, Grant, Jerry, before eventually trying Glenda, Gabby, Grace, Gretel, Gwen, and Gertrude before giving up. I still feel like this is a key to the puzzle. I just cannot find the answer right now, so I'm going to have to go in a different direction. Thank you for calling the Defunct Land tip line. If you have any leads on who might have written the Disney Channel theme, please leave a message after the beep.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, I know who wrote the Disney Channel theme song. It was this guy. It was Joe. Yeah, it was Joe Mama. Joe Mama wrote the Disney Channel theme song. So yeah, hope that helps.
Hey, I've got a tip. Why don't you stop calling these YouTube videos documentaries, you pretentious...
Yo, Kevin, what's up, man? Hey, I heard you were researching the Disney Channel theme. Have you ever heard of the Mighty Mighty Bosstones?
The Mighty Mighty Bosstones are a ska band that was formed in Boston, Massachusetts in 1983. The band was originally started by blah 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 blah. All you need to know is that in 1997, the band released the hit single, The Impression That I Get. This is by far the most popular Mighty Mighty Bosstones song, and for our purposes, its relevance is found in the repeated horn riff heard throughout the track. Let me know if you hear anything familiar. Yes, The Impression That I Get by the Mighty Mighty Bosstones seemingly features what would become the Disney Channel theme 5 years later. The riff does include the same notes, and the rhythm is similar, but this is only the first half of this riff. The reason that I mention this is not because I think the composer of the theme stole from the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. It is also not because I think the theme was written by a Bostonian. I mention this because there is almost no information on the Disney Channel theme online, and everywhere I seem to go, if there is discussion on these 4 notes, someone will bring up this song. So while I don't think this is part of the mystery, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones have made the board, although I am going to put them way over here. With that out of the way, let's see if we can find some more promising leads. There are 2 major music licensing organizations that composers and artists join, and that's ASCAP and BMI, and they have a shared database. So if you want to license something, all you have to do is go to this search engine and search for the song, and it'll tell you who owns it, who wrote it, who has the ability to license it. Now, I'm not sure that the composer that wrote the theme would have submitted to ASCAP and BMI, as Disney Channel owns it 100%, but it's the best lead I have right now, so let's search. You can search by title, you can search by composer, you can search by publisher, but I'm just going to type in Disney Channel and see what happens. Whoa. There are 4 pages. There are so many compositions. There are 77 results. I thought we'd have no results. Now I'm thinking we have too many. Okay, let's see what they give us. Arnheider Theodore Linkfield. That's a great name. It just says Disney Channel. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't say the year. The composition is just titled Disney Channel. Okay, here's another one called Disney Channel. We have at least publishers this time. Disney Luft Raus. Is that German? Air Out. Air Out. Like Disney Channel, is that what like a bumper's called? Like an air out? Okay, that's German Disney Channel. Okay, this is Japanese Disney Channel. Japan Central Music Limited. It's not Disney Channel 10th anniversary because that would have been 93 or something like that. David Norland is credited for writing at least half of these results. I mean, look at how many he made. But how do we verify that he wrote the theme? Because these don't give much away. Okay, so these alternate titles are actually what the announcer is saying. So, and now back to, yeah, so it says, and now back to right here. Sweet Niblets, Hannah Montana. I bet you I can find the one that says Sweet Niblets. And if it ends with the theme, David Norland wrote the theme. Okay, we got this. Let's do it.
Rock stardom? No biggie. New boy crushes? Whoa, stop the presses! Catch the drama of Hannah Montana on Disney Channel.
We're waiting for Sweet Niblets.
Hannah Miley? Oh, I know. Hang out with Hannah and Miley on Hannah Montana right here on Disney Channel. Stick around. Hannah Montana will be right back on Disney Channel. Let's get back to Hannah Montana on
Say Sweet Niblets.
Hannah Montana's next, part of Disney Channel's Summer of Stars. Don't go away. Hannah Montana will be right back. Part of Disney Channel's Summer of Stars. Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana. All part of That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana. Sweet Niblets. Hannah Montana.
Yes, we got it. But is the theme there?
Hannah Montana will be right back on Disney Channel.
It is. It's there. Sweet Niblets. Hannah Montana Disney promo. David Richard Christopher Norland. Now I just got to figure out how to get in touch with this guy. His website does not mention working for Disney Channel. I'm 95% sure this is the David Norland that wrote for Disney Channel. And I found a way to contact him. I really hope he responds. Good news. David Norland responded. Bad news, he did not write the Disney Channel theme. He started writing for the channel in 2007, so the mnemonic predated his involvement. However, I still asked if he would be willing to do an interview, because he wrote many instrumentals using the 4-note theme and he very well might know who wrote it. Another reason I'd love to speak with him is because he started writing for the channel in 2007. When I saw that year, 2 words immediately came to mind. Ribbon Era. A common practice among those who study and teach history is to separate long spans of time and large amounts of information into smaller, more digestible eras. But how does one go about breaking apart history? Sometimes it's more obvious than others. For instance, the history of China is most often told through its dynasties, and it is very clear when each dynasty begins and ends. Disney's film history has also famously been separated into eras, such as the Golden Age, Silver Age, and the most well-known, the Disney Renaissance. While most breakdowns of the Disney animation eras explain the historical reason for the change, I find that these eras are separated less by history and more by the quality of the films. Sometimes there is a historical reason for a dip in quality, such as the wartime era. But by the time you get to the post-Renaissance, the general reasoning for the distinction is, these are the less good ones. Except for the one that you love. That's my favorite too. So what about Disney Channel? How is its history separated by the fans that study it like the great epic that it is? Is it separated by TV shows, or what about the DCOMs? Surprisingly, the general consensus among fans is that Disney Channel history should be separated by the bumpers. This is not ahistorical, as each change in bumper design typically coincided with other significant changes to the channel in terms of branding and strategy. Still, the nomenclature is most often related to the style of the bumpers. The era from 1983 to 1997 is typically labeled Early Beginnings, because most Disney Channel fans consider the channel's 1997 rebranding as the true start to the channel as they know it. 1997 to 2002 is an obvious era, and is sometimes labeled the 3-block era, the Zoog Disney era, or the Mickey TV era. 2002 to 2007 is often referred to as the bounce era, for the way the logo bounces around the screen during the bumpers. In 2007, the channel was given another refresh, retaining many elements from the bounce era, with the main difference being updated music cues and bumpers that featured a ribbon twirling around the screen before forming the Disney Channel logo. This era is thus referred to as the ribbon era. In 2010, the bumpers were refreshed once again, now placing the classic logo inside of a rounded square. This was just after Disney Channel began the switch to high definition, allowing viewers to watch in a 16:9 aspect ratio. The original digital on-screen channel graphic, that little watermark in the corner of the screen, referred to as a network bug, was designed with the 4:3 aspect ratio in mind, and probably looked a bit awkward moved out to the far corner while still being attached to the bottom. The same could be said for pretty much all of the bumpers since 2002, as the classic logo hugs the left side of the screen in a way that would leave far too much empty space in a widescreen format. The new rounded square look was a compromise, maintaining the design of the old logo, but placing it in a square that could be centered on the screen or placed equidistant from the corner. I imagine this entire era of television was annoying for those making bumpers, because consumers were still making the transition to HD and channels were simulcasting in standard definition and high definition. This meant that you would need to make your bumper in 16:9, but none of the critical elements could be pushed to the side. This resulted in a product that, when viewed in widescreen, feels too centered, because rather than this box being the area for all of your titles, you actually have to put them in this box. This also made the wand IDs look a bit awkward in this era when broadcast in HD, but we did get to see the dog with a blog wand ID, and he drew that logo way better than those kids. Good boy. In 2014, the rounded square era ended, and Disney Channel fans lost the logo that had been a staple of the channel since 2002. The new logo removed the iconic Mickey ears, instead choosing to put ears on the dot of the eye in Disney. The wand IDs remained, with some major alterations. Instead of holding a giant glowing stick, the stars now held a wizard's wand. Instead of drawing the classic logo, the stars only drew the ears on the eye, and instead of being on a white background, the stars were placed in front of a generic location. In 2017, this changed to a colored background, and in 2018, the white background returned, as did the glow stick. These newer eras of Disney Channel have been separated into the glass or family era, the social media era, and most recently, the item age. Because there's items in the bumpers. We can work on that name, there's still time. So this leads to the obvious question: which era is best? The answer is whichever era you watched as a kid. But if you looked at just pure popularity, then the Disney Channel peaked during the Ribbon era in 2007. This was helped in large part by the premiere of High School Musical 2, which was watched by 17.24 million people. This broke the record not only for the most watched premiere of a Disney Channel original movie, but also the record for the most watched program premiere on cable ever. That's all of cable ever. It broke the record set the previous year by a Monday Night Football game, which itself broke a record set by the Al Gore-Ross Perot debate over NAFTA in 1993. It is obvious why High School Musical 2 was able to achieve this feat. The debate over NAFTA was an intense and important argument between two powerful political rivals, and Monday Night Football is consistently popular as it broadcasts the intensity and suspense of athletics. High School Musical 2 was able to combine these two ratings winners by showcasing both the drama of sports as well as a tantalizing debate. Rather than the pros and cons to controversial trade legislation, with Perot on the side of anti-NAFTA and Gore on the side of pro-NAFTA, High School Musical 2 showcases a debate as to whether high schooler Chad Danforth can or cannot dance, with Chad squarely on the side of anti-dance, or as he says, I don't dance, and with theater kid Ryan Evans firmly on the side of pro-dance, or in his words, I know you can. This back and forth captured America in a way that neither the NAFTA debate or Monday Night Football could do on their own. When Chad replies to Ryan's assertion that he knows that he can dance, Chad, like a bullwhip, retorts, not a chance. 17 million people watched this premiere. If you clicked on this video, you were probably one of them. It impacted some more than others. In 2007, Disney Channel had an average of 2.694 million viewers, which at the time was the largest audience in the history of cable. This was the peak in the channel's popularity. As more television viewers, especially children, moved away from cable and to the internet, Disney Channel's viewership fell dramatically, and in 2021, the channel saw an average of only 233,000 viewers, a 90% loss from its peak in 2007. 2007, the year that the Disney Channel peaked in viewership, the year that Disney Channel entered the ribbon era, the year that Disney Channel hired a new composer to write music for their bumpers, a composer that just agreed to an interview.
Hi, my name's David Norland. I'm a composer. I worked on the Disney Channel bumpers and IDs from around 2007 to around 2014. I've never been anything but a musician. I was educated classically up to the age of 11 or 12 when I discovered the electric guitar and took a hard left turn. I started doing work for various animation companies and production companies. I guess through word of mouth, I got a call from this guy one day who was, at the time, the creative director for a channel that doesn't exist anymore. It's a channel called SoapNet.
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 SoapNet. The new way to watch soaps. He got me in to do the music, and we developed this relationship, and he moved on from there to become the creative director for Disney Channel. And when he went there in 2007, the very first thing he did was this big rebrand, and he hired me to do that, which was great. I'd made records for Disney artists before, and it was at a time when pop music, like in its purest, sugariest form, was really having another heyday. And suddenly Disney was sort of dominating. I guess what I was trying to do was to channel what I'd done for them in pop records and what was happening pop-wise at the time into the bumpers, so that it was really consistent with everything that Disney was doing at that point.
What goes into a composition like that? What are you trying to do psychologically when writing, and what do you want the effect of it to have?
First of all, you have to ask the question, what is a bumper for? We've got the commercial break coming up, or whatever the break is in the programming, and we do not want people to go away. I'm trying to create, and I think the people making the visuals as well, it's just a sense of ongoing excitement that this is not the end, that there's more to come, and it's going to be even more exciting. The actual 4-note mnemonic, the dun 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 dun, predated me. I inherited that when I was brought on board. In a musical sense, I've got to have made something that rhythmically and melodically leads to the mnemonic as the logical culmination of it.
So with those 4 notes, did you compose all in the same key? Is it the same 4 notes, or is it the same steps?
It's the same steps. It's the same intervals. So whether it's bum 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 or bum 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 bum, it's still, and so I composed in a lot of different keys. They're not particularly exotic keys. They're the kinds of keys that you would find pop music written in. I wonder if I could sit at the piano and illustrate this. Yeah, you can go bum 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 bum. Would probably, to me, I would automatically think of that as bum 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 bum. Right, so F G C 4-5-1. But you could also do it the other way around. You could do bum 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 bum, right, and do it 5-4-1, or you could do bum 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 bum. So you could do an E dominant 7th to an F to a C, or you could do bum 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 bum, which is a little more kind of jazzy and old school and kind of music hall. The basic rhythm is bum 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 bum, right? But I think that I probably messed the rhythm around a little, moved it around a little bit in some circumstances as well, and probably went bump bump bum bum, which is just rhythmically a slightly different way of voicing it. It's still the same intervals, but it says something ever so slightly different rhythmically.
I want to ask you about some of the compositions specifically. I'll tell you my favorite. It was this wild, like,
that one was originally scored to one which had a particular ribbon movement around it, and the string runs reflected precisely the ribbon movement.
You were hired to do this. Do they say to you, hey, we're keeping this mnemonic, go nuts, but have it end with this?
Actually, it would have been an informal conversation between me and Ron, the executive, and that conversation probably would have been, you know what the mnemonic is, don't you? Yeah, just make sure, obviously everything's got to end with that. I don't even know that he would have even had to have said everything's got to end with that, because I would have known that. Seems very unlikely that it would even have been considered that they would change the mnemonic. It's such a successful piece of branding.
They don't hand you sheet music with 4 notes on it.
I don't think they did, no. I think at a certain point with the Disney Junior one, which I had actually written, I think I did have to submit a piece of sheet music with these 4 notes on a stage. but I never received that for the Disney Channel thing. No, it was all very much just, well, you know what the mnemonic is, isn't it? And I have no idea who originally came up with it. As to your quest to find out who was the originator of it, I mean, I'd be quite interested to know as well, because in this sort of very narrow specialist realm of making music, you have to figure that that's one of the more successful things of all time in that realm.
I was obviously disappointed that David did not know who wrote the Disney Channel theme. But while I was researching the history of the eras of the channel, I stumbled across the strongest lead I've had yet. Everyone knows Wikipedia, but there are countless other online encyclopedias that are created by fans, and these often skew more niche and specific. While researching the different eras, I stumbled across the Audiovisual Identity Database. It is bumper Wikipedia, and it is the most detailed source for Disney Channel idents that I've found. The people that contributed to this database left no stone unturned. They even go as far as to list the fonts that Disney Channel started using at this time. Not only that, but they also have an entire section dedicated to the music from this era. They describe it as several drum beats which segue into a ska punk theme with electric guitars and a horn section, the last 4 notes of which become Disney Channel's signature jingle. And then, you see this. Composed by Tonal Sound and Elias Associates. I don't know how they know this. I don't know if it's right, but this is the most solid lead I've had yet. Alright, let's find Tonal Sound Elias Associates. Here's Elias. Audio Identity. A pioneer in the discipline of audio branding. Alright, they have a reel. Let's watch their reel. Oh, the MTV Moon Man. That's famous.
Liberty, liberty, liberty.
And that annoying Liberty one.
Yahoo!
They made Yahoo? And Intel? And Honda?
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Man, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't see Disney Channel, but I just saw pretty much everything else. That is every sound I have ever heard. Okay, here's an article about them. Elias Music is known as the leader in sonic branding and for its ability to bring stories to life through the power of music. Mercedes-Benz, Nike, American Express, Liberty Mutual, Honda, Google, Farmers Insurance, Apple. There is probably a better than not chance that whoever wrote the Disney Channel theme worked for Elias. Elias just happens to be the most popular music company for jingles and sonic branding in the world. This company has to have at least 10, maybe 20 composers at a time, maybe 100 composers. Well, it's not a good sign when I Google Elias Music Disney Channel jingle and the first thing to come up with any sort of relevance is the Audiovisual Identity Database. What is Elias Tonal? Again, first relevant result, the Audiovisual Identity Database, where we found the information in the first place. Okay, here we go. Alex Osarenko, a composer, founded Tonal Sound in New York City in 2002, and one of Tonal's clients was the Disney Channel. And here's a link to their website. Okay, Tonal Sound does not exist anymore. Let's search for Tonal Sound Alex Osarenko. Oh no, I think that's an obituary. Yeah, he passed away 2 years ago. Man. Alex Osarenko was my creative director for over 10 years during our shared time at Elias Arts. So it seems that Alex Osarenko moved from Elias to Tonal in 2002 when the Disney Channel stuff was being written, which might be why both companies are credited here. And I just keep seeing the tonalsound.com. Gosh darn it. Oh wait, the Wayback Machine. We don't have anything from 2002, but we do have stuff from 2003. Look at this old website. Andy Solomon, Eric Perlmutter, Michelle King. Andy Solomon is the VP of Operations at Definition 6, and he worked for Elias Arts and Tonal Sound. Andy's a producer. Let's look for Eric Perlmutter. Type in Eric Perlmutter Disney Channel. Oh my god. Disney Channel movie open intro 2002 old version. It can't be. It is! Oh my gosh. And this is Eric's company. He's crediting himself for writing it. This doesn't mean he wrote the theme, but the fact that we know that he at least wrote Let's Watch a Disney Channel Movie, that's a win. I needed that. So our initial lead from the audiovisual identity database was Elias Associates and Tonal Sound. Through our research, we found that Alex Lazarenko was a creative director at both, started at Elias, and then founded Tonal. We also found that he has unfortunately passed away. We know this because another composer, Fritz Dottie, wrote a tribute to Alex, in which he claims that both Alex and him worked at Elias at the same time. This means that Fritz is also on the suspect list. Through the Archive Tonal website, we found mention of Andy Solomon and Eric Perlmutter. Andy was a producer, but Eric was definitely a composer, because through Eric's own website, we learned that he wrote the classic Let's Watch a Disney Channel Movie opening song. After digesting all of this evidence, I am now confident that Eric Perlmutter, while working at Tonal Sound, wrote the Disney Channel theme in 2002. Did you write the Disney Channel theme?
Didn't, no.
Do you know who wrote the Disney Channel theme?
No, I don't. I still don't.
Okay, what did you do for Disney Channel?
So for the Disney Channel, I wrote a whole bunch of little bumpers, and then I actually did the music for Disney Channel Movie, which was sort of separate from all that identity stuff. And yeah, it turns out that people loved that.
Were you given the lyrics, or did you write those lyrics?
Let's start a Disney Channel movie. Is there any other lyrics? No, let's watch a Disney Channel movie.
We're gonna watch.
And that's it. I don't know where I found the lyrics.
They just came to you.
To put that into the world, but yeah, it happened.
Wait, so you didn't write the theme, but you wrote with the theme?
Yes, so we would have the theme, mostly for those. We just had so much fun with them that I think it was easy in that respect because they're so short. There's not really much time to make a statement. So the challenge was always find the essence of that 5-second little bit. And because you don't have long to tell a story, but you still need to tell that story of, I'm trying to think of one where the girl's jumping on her bed and it's a pillow fight and feathers are flying everywhere and it's over. Like you don't even have time to sort of set up an idea before it's done.
I just sent you a compilation of these idents. Okay. Did you write any of these?
Let's see. Okay, I did that. I did this one with the freezer. This is me. The bug. Yeah, I did this one too. Pillow fight. I did this one with the dog.
How'd you get the dog to bark like that?
That was me. Orf, 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 orf.
Wait, no, really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Those are the
so
most
that wasn't a I thought you just pitch corrected the dog.
Nope, that
was you.
Me barking. I think it's a misconception oftentimes with people who hear composer and you think about a guy with a feathered pencil writing, sheet music out of his mind, but most of the time it's just somebody on a keyboard coming up and recording in real time as they're creating and putting it all together at the same time. But when it came to these notes, it was pretty straight ahead.
And what was the name of the music house you did these with?
Elias Associates or Elias Arts.
So from my research, it seems like Elias is a really big company, probably the biggest music house for jingles and sound signatures. Is that right?
Absolutely. That was my understanding, that they were the country's biggest, probably the world's biggest music house, bi-coastal at the time.
So that's probably why I'm having a difficult time trying to find who wrote that theme.
Yes.
It could have been probably dozens of people at the time.
Yes. And I think the company tried to harness this idea of there are no individuals here, a little bit of a nameless face. You weren't sort of allowed to be known.
Okay, thanks so much for doing this. My last question, did you work with a G. Owen?
Didn't, no.
Okay. I'm actually having a lot of trouble finding who wrote this.
When you create for Disney, it's Disney's. So Disney wrote the Disney Channel theme.
So I just got a response from Fritz Dottie. He also did not write the theme. He said that if anybody were to know, it would be Alex Lazarenko. We unfortunately cannot ask him. It's been a few weeks now of no progress, so I think it's time to admit that the trail has gone cold. I've reached out to as many relevant people as I can find, most of whom did not respond, and those that did told me that they did not write the theme and have no idea who did. There is one more thing I can try, a last resort, and that is releasing the video. I've always known this was my break glass in case of emergency. If I stop the video here and release it, someone out there watching must know who wrote this theme, or know someone who knows, or at the very least know who G. Owen is. I know it's anticlimactic, but I'm out of options. This is officially a cold case, which means there's only one thing left to do. It's really not surprising that I've come up short. Bumpers, idents, interstitials, they are designed to be seamless. They are not meant to stand out. Why would their creators be any different? Maybe I'm just making excuses. From the moment I started this investigation, I had an ending in mind. I thought it would be under more triumphant circumstances, but I hope it still plays well in defeat. And if I'm being honest, I just really want to do this, so please indulge me. I'm Kevin Perjurer, and you're watching Disney Channel. Huh. That doesn't look right. Okay, let's try this again. Dang it. No, that's Zoo Pals. Okay, I feel bad for making fun of those kids earlier. I also cannot draw the logo. Yes, it's funny to see how off they were, but they look tired and confused in those outtakes. I can't believe Disney would even release those. Oh my god. I know how to find the composer. Okay, so I just had a revelation. Who released the footage of the kids doing the wand IDs? Because these are not funny bloopers. This is not a gag reel that would be included on a DVD. I don't know when Disney would have released this in any official capacity. So I'm thinking that someone else did. That someone would need to have access to the footage. So maybe it was someone internally, but more likely it was some company that worked on the project. Okay, this is a news organization that released the footage. Hilary Duff and Raven awkwardly do wand IDs and unearth Disney Channel promo BTS footage. This article does not mention where they got the footage, it just mentions that it was unearthed somehow. So this BuzzFeed article credits a Twitter account for uploading them, but then it also embeds YouTube links that are no longer available. Here's a Pop Crush article. Update, the playlist has been removed from public viewing. Who uploaded the playlist? So what if I YouTube the playlist? Nothing. What if I Google the playlist? Nothing. What if I just do this? We're getting somewhere. Oh my gosh. Last month, Atlanta edit boutique Guillotine Post released some exclusive throwback videos on YouTube from some post-production work they did on the iconic Disney Channel Wand IDs in 2002. Here's Guillotine Post. They don't credit themselves for doing any Disney Channel stuff. This is Guillotine is a digital boutique in Midtown Atlanta. Oh my god. Glenn Owen. No, go back. Glenn Owen. That's G. Owen. That has to be G. Owen. State Line Films. Glenn Owen worked for Disney Channel. What is this? It's one of the 9/11 PSAs! The editor worked for director Glenn Owen. That is G. Owen. For Andrea Taylor at Disney Channel. Here's Andrea Taylor, Senior Vice President on Air, Disney Channel, Toon Disney, and SoapNet. Hey, that's the new way to watch soaps. January 2000 to January 2003 overhauled the network's image as a channel for sweet 6-year-old girls into a powerhouse that was cool for all kids, responsible for all aspects of on-air promotion, packaging, stunting, marketing, advertising, sales tapes, synergy projects, online activity, and short-form programming. Everything except the shows. That's what this video's about. She has to know who wrote the theme. I really hope she responds to her inbox. So my first question is, what did you do at Disney Channel?
My job was to create personalities for networks, change them around or make them different, and then go on to the next one. When I went to Lifetime, it was not a network for women. There was a lot of variety of program, including medical programming. And when the head of programming and my group said, we're going to call this Television for Women, the head of ad sales said, oh my God, we're going to lose so much money. This is terrible. My job was to say, okay, here's what you got to do.
Early in my career, I've been the associate creative director for sports promotion at TNT, and Andrea was the creative director there. And so when she started working at Disney, she continued to use me to direct and produce their promotional work. She used Patrick McDonough a lot. He was amazing.
Patrick is great. I mean, he's designed so many networks.
I had been working mostly in sports. Andrea Taylor, who we did a redesign for Comedy Central. She then went to TNT. We did a redesign for TNT. Andrea went to Disney. That's how we started to get involved with the Disney brand and the Disney Channel movies, the Wand IDs.
I was recruited from TNT to go to Disney to turn it from a network that was two things. They had a younger section that was like Bear in the Big Blue House. And then there was 6-year-old girly stuff. The goal was to turn it into a tween sensation. We knew that that's where Disney Channel could fit in and win and be amazing. It meant changing the programming, but that would take a little longer. But as you know, Disney didn't have commercials. So you had 40 minutes an hour of programming, and then I had 20 minutes an hour to fill.
And a lot of that was really clever synergy programming. Were you told by someone higher up what you needed to promote?
There was a meeting every week where there was a big, humongous conference room table where everyone would announce what they were doing that week, like to cross-promote. Like, I wish I had video from these meetings. When the Lizzie McGuire movie was coming out, there was a meeting where someone would go, we're making napkins. The next group would go, we've got the lunch boxes. And this started at least a year before the movie came out. I started selling you stuff about Finding Nemo a year and a half before Nemo came out. I think we called them fishy facts. And it was all stuff to get kids interested in fish, so that when it came out, you liked fish.
And these kids were like, this is perfect because I'm already into fish coincidentally.
Uh-huh.
But it was not a coincidence.
No.
Okay, that's a little sinister.
Mm-hmm.
What is a network personality?
It's the feeling that you get that relates to that channel or that brand, and whether that's based on pacing or tempo or instrumentation or color or typography, animation. So all these different elements come together to create this vibe, feeling, essence.
The psychology of branding a network, it's the same as creating a fan for anything. You want you to be their first choice when they're going to look at stuff like, oh, that's my channel. So the competition was Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. So Cartoon Network was much more in your face, looked at more for boys because it was more loud. The philosophy at Nickelodeon was us versus them, kids versus the rest of the world, whereas Disney was never an us versus them. Parents always felt better about Disney.
What do you remember about Zoog Disney?
Zoog was a weird thing. That was like a foray into the online world and the gaming world and creating sort of this existential world for kids. Technology wasn't necessarily where we needed it to be. It turned into a different thing.
Do you remember Zoog?
Oh yeah. We did I think we did the Zoog.
There was a Zoog programming block. I think. Do you remember Zoog movie?
I think we did. We do Zoog. We did Zoog movie.
Yes, you did, because it's the same kids jumping on that trampoline.
Exactly. I don't even know. I think Disney Channel movie came first, and then all of a sudden, I don't know. Andrea probably called and said, "All right, they want me to do this Zoog movie." But it should be just like this. Yeah, I forgot all about it.
We always would say, like the jumping movie open. Those kids are probably all like parents and decrepit old people now at this point. We worked on what we called the promises. I'm trying to remember what they were. Like one was express yourself. But when I was growing up, we had magazines that told you what these stars loved, which, I'm sure somebody else wrote. And I thought that was great. Let's do that for now. I had them talk about their own personal lives so that kids would feel comfortable and feel like they could relate to the people on the channel. It looked like these kids all lived in the same house and they all knew each other, or they all did things together.
Yes.
Believe me, none of these kids lived together. None of these kids did anything. A few of them did stuff together, but not that many. The only times they ever really got together was when I said, okay, there's going to be a shoot. You're all going to be here. You're all going to do this. And here's what you're going to say. They would watch Lizzie McGuire, and they didn't watch Tom Cruise and think he was amazing. They did think that she was more of a big thing to them. So the fact that they could get an insight into what all these stars felt about their mother or their brother was a bigger deal. That was their only path to that info.
And the weirdest thing that happened was then they became the most famous people in the world. Was that weird to see? Were you like, whoops?
I know, it's pretty funny.
What was the vibe? I mean, it was poppy. What was it? What could you describe it for
Fun.
Disney Channel? Fun.
Fun, and kind of magic. I mean, it makes me think about what the scenario of the kids in the cafeteria line, grays and neutrals and drab to in comes the Disney logo, and it's glitter and candy and pink and delicious and syrupy. They were just these fun, funny little stories that were incredibly complicated and time-consuming to produce.
Elio Hensley and I had come up with the wand idea because we loved Tinkerbell. The wand thing came during lunch or so, because we had the Disney Channel logo, so that's where the wand came from. It was very hard for the stars to understand what the hell we were doing, because remember, they were literally holding a stick.
Some were way, way off. You'd have to do it again. And then I would always say, okay, one more, which was a lie. We'd do 10 more.
Very good. One more.
Ooh, none of that.
They got tired of me fast, I'm sure. Just another annoying thing we're having them do on their day off.
What were the wand IDs shot around the same production of some of the Express Yourself?
It would be like a Lazy Susan. We would do the interview, then we'd have different B-roll sets. We'd have like that B-roll set where we'd have the strands of different colored plastic. So we would bounce them around and get B-roll on these different sets. And that would be one of the stops through their little, promo journey.
Okay, so all these iconic, classic, recognizable things for generations of children were in the same room.
Correct.
Not only were they shot at the same time or the same production, they were probably shot within 30 minutes of each other.
100%.
So the big question I've been asking throughout all of this research, and the question that I really hope you have an answer to, is who wrote the Disney Channel theme, that 4-note mnemonic that started appearing when you were redesigning the channel? Do you have any idea who could have written that?
I worked with a guy, Alex Lazarenko, who is not alive anymore. He worked at a company called Tonal. He created that sound. I had worked with him for a long time. Like, I'd worked with him at TNT. I'd worked with him at Comedy Central.
So that 4-note mnemonic, that was definitely Alex Lazarenko.
Yeah, it was Alex.
Do you remember anything from the production when he was writing the theme?
He probably did it in like a day or two. It's like things came to him. He's amazing. I mean, he probably wouldn't have said he wrote it in a day. He probably would have said, I struggled over it for months.
Do you know anyone else that would have known Alex or that would have been around for the production of these tracks specifically?
I'm sure, I could probably get you to the producer. I'm trying to think of the name. Now I can't remember his name, who was the producer on it.
Andy Solomon?
Andy Solomon, that's who produced it.
Hi, I'm Andy Solomon, VP of Operations for Definition 6, formerly for Elias Arts and Tonal.
So when you started at Elias, is that when you met Alex?
Yeah, right away when I started at Elias. I started as a producer, so he was the creative director on all the jobs.
I assumed it wasn't Alex because he was always listed as creative director, executive owner, eventually with Tonal. Through talking to people, he was also composing regularly.
Oh, absolutely. He's like a classically trained musician, done a million different things, but had a knack for memorable melodies. It was almost like you could say the words to his melody, like whether it was Disney Channel. And I forget, we did work for Encore years ago, and it was 2 notes, and we'd always go encore, and that was the melody. So, half joking, but I also think that was part of his process as well.
Do you know anyone else that I could speak to about Alex?
His sister Lisa. Do you know Lisa Lazarenko?
If you ever spent time around Alex, you would notice even when he was just casually sitting still, his right hand was almost like he had an invisible pen in his hand writing music. His right hand was always writing. I think in his mind, he was always thinking of things in a musical perspective.
I noticed towards the end of his life, he was credited alongside a David Little. Do you have his information?
My name's David Little. I worked at Tonal for, I would estimate, 12 years. I continued to work with Alex after that. I've never seen anybody that can do something as complex, almost seems like effortless. He would just turn around and just like knock out like an amazing piece. I'm like, all right, what's next?
He's an amazing musician, and he was also in this business world, in the music for television and film and stuff. He was like fast.
He could literally write music in a couple hours and be done with it. I mean, it really came to him super fast.
The thing that I'm struggling with most right now is lack of photos of Alex. I found only one. Do you have any? Do you know of any?
I knew him for probably about close to 20 years or whatever, and I had 0 photos of him. He was one of those guys. He was like, if a camera came out, he was like, I'm out of here.
So Andrea Taylor told me that the theme was written by Alex Lazarenko.
How not surprised am I about that? A genius composer and a good friend. He's no longer with us, but he was really the sort of ringleader of all of our composers at Elias. It's tough when you have a boss who's a genius and who's just an absolute music prodigy, and you're just a dumb rock bass player trying to, breathe the same air. as him as a young person. It was incredibly intimidating, and hugely inspiring. And he was a great leader and boss as well.
He was wonderful, loving, funny, so talented, so incredibly talented that it just was like nothing to him. He could, and being in his presence, especially while he was working, when, I can remember, I feel like I'm getting a little emotional right now, but those sessions where you would just show up at his studio and Alex would sit at the piano and just kind of go up.
For TNT, I mean, we conducted orchestras to do things, and it was just amazing to watch him work. And then for this, here he is doing pop music, like the same head.
I love what I do. I get to make videos for a living on subjects that I'm passionate about, that people watch. I am so lucky, and I am eternally grateful for every second that I am able to do this. But I'd be lying if there wasn't a small part of me that hates that this is called a video and not a documentary or a film, and that I am referred to as a YouTuber or a content creator, and not a filmmaker or a documentarian or an artist. Because the truth is that I could do this, make videos on this platform every day until I die, and I would be happy every day. But that small part of me, that selfish, arrogant, pretentious, miserable part of me, would not be happy if that were my legacy when I'm gone. Because living my dream looks a lot different than I imagined as a kid, or even 10 years ago. I didn't know Alex Lazarenko, and unfortunately, I never will. I made this video 2 years too late, and I missed my chance to interview him. I can't ask him what it was like composing for commercials and networks. I can't ask him how he came up with the Disney Channel theme. But I think the first question that I would ask would be, are you okay with this? Do you even want to be credited with writing this theme? Because this was his most popular work. He composed for other networks and shows and commercials and films, some of which some people may recognize. But nothing comes close to these 4 notes. How could you compete with something that has been playing non-stop for millions of people for 20 years? And according to everyone I've spoken with, he probably wrote it in a day. And he might not have thought about it again after that. It was just another job. Alex is well remembered by his friends and family and coworkers, but on a broader public and cultural scale, he does not have a well-defined legacy. There's the tribute that Fritz Dottie wrote, the IMDb page, the archived website, and one single photo. But when I release this video and credit him for composing this theme, it will likely become the thing that he is known for. And I'm hesitant to do that. I'm hesitant to condemn someone else to the fate that I fear for myself. And worse, in this case, it's just 4 notes. There is an obvious solution to this, and that is to expose you to some of Alex's other work while I have your attention, to give you a broader sense of his talents and artistry outside of this 4-note mnemonic. I could play a few clips from his other compositions. I could link to some of his work and encourage you to go listen to it on your own. But I don't have to, because you've already listened to his music. In fact, you're listening to it right now, and you have been the whole time. Since the beginning, you've been listening to the music of the late Alex Lazarenko. You ever think about your legacy as an artist at all?
I have lots of thoughts on the subject. You know, I asked my wife, there's a gentleman who's got in touch with me who's interested in the Disney work that I did. And is that what I would like to go on the record speaking about? You know, when I have these other parts of my work and all of this kind of, and then I thought, well, you know, I brought to it everything that I bring to everything that I do. Perhaps there's a sort of a grandiosity in the artist, in all of, probably in every artist that wants to be the person who is remembered as, you know, the great, the serious, the world changing. Maybe humility is accepting that we're not going to be in charge of how we're seen by posterity, and actually it doesn't matter, and that the work will speak for itself. Aliens coming from outer space without our preconceptions of what makes great art, or what our preconceptions of what our best work is, may have a completely different idea of what's valuable in terms of, you know, human creativity. A 4-note mnemonic that in its beautiful minimal simplicity completely encaptures an entire world of feeling and associations for millions of people across generations and around the world. I think that's a pretty outstanding legacy.
He was just good at understanding the big picture of a lot of things. So when he wrote the music, I think he knew in his mind that something as simple as that 4-note mnemonic could have a shelf life of 20 years. I really do.
I have always been fascinated with programming breaks, bumpers, network identifications, and interstitial programming. Their existence is so practical, often necessary, and yet there is so much creativity and artistry put into them. It's confounding. There is a part of me that wants to believe that the truest art, the most worthy, the most important, is the art which is created purely out of love for the form, the art that takes the longest to create, and the art that has the most to say. That the music played in concert halls must be better than the music written for commercials. That the films that play in theaters must be more important than those uploaded to the internet. That the programming must have more merit than the programming breaks. But I've never fully believed this. In truth, I am more drawn to the unsung artists, those whose work often goes overlooked. Whenever I have the opportunity to speak to these people, there is no shortage of passion, intent, or pride in what they do. It doesn't matter if it was just a job, or if they completed it in a day. It doesn't matter what platform it ended up on, or what they are referred to as. These are artists. They brought everything they had to whatever they were doing, and it showed. In the end, the production of a work is only half of the process, and maybe all that matters is that someone, somewhere, got something from whatever you created. And in the case of the Disney Channel mnemonic, that is indisputable. In the minds of thousands, if not millions of people, this music evokes feelings and memories, often long lost. This sound has the ability to bring back anything from the feel of carpet to the color of walls. It could return one's mind to a happy childhood, or represent a safe reprieve from a difficult one. It could be a symbol of a relationship with a sibling, or a parent, or a friend. It could even inspire future artists. All from a sound. Any one of us, artist or otherwise, would be fortunate, blessed even, to be remembered for a single note. So what a monumental achievement it is to be remembered for 4.